was a threat to everything, to all life, in that one moment.
Green Lantern, the animated series, 2011 to 2013. An overview. Hal Jordan's Green Lantern from the 2011 animated series has been an amazing representation of the Emerald Knight. The series was released with only one season containing 26 episodes that was broadcast till March 2013. It was also the first CGI DC WB series which suitably honored the plot and premise. The series was headed by Bruce Timm and Sam Register as executive producers, and if this does not excite you yet, let us tell you that this series is a space-based, action-based, science fiction drama focusing on the different colored Lantern Corps. If you want to know what makes this the finest Green Lantern series, sit tight as we look into the adventures and challenges of Hal Jordan. Also, you can be a superhero for us by simply liking this video and subscribing to our channel to support our enthusiastic efforts in bringing you more such content. Beware My Power, Part 1. The series' first episode begins somewhat unceremoniously as we witness a Green Lantern Corps member, M10, coming across a spaceship drifting in space. M10 tries to rescue the pilot but gets attacked by the devious Razor and his companion, Zilius Zox. The two Red Lanterns seem to be working for someone called Atrocitus and have a mission to kill Green Lanterns. They kill off M10, and 18 months later, we see Hal Jordan test flying a billion-dollar aircraft in the Californian desert. His boss and potential love interest, Carol, is not amused with his antics, and when an earthquake endangers a passenger train, Hal leaves his jet on autopilot so that he can use the Green Lantern's power to save the train. The jet crashes before Hal can get back, and although Carol seems worried, she slaps him when he turns up unscathed. Despite her inhibitions, Hal kisses Carol and asks her out for dinner, but a signal on his ring makes him rush out. Hal flies to Ola, the home of the Space Guardians, where other GLs Salik and Kilowog wait for him at the door. It appears the Guardians have summoned Hal for disobeying orders and punching a diplomat. Hal, in his cocky manner, proves that the diplomat used his diplomatic immunity to run a slave ring, and so his action was justified. Did you know Hal Jordan once collaborated with Colonel Sanders to catch a chicken sandwich thief? This KFC crossover appeared at the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con. Any further berating or punishment that may have fallen on him gets interrupted when a Green Lantern's ring returns, indicating a death. Salik finds that it belonged to M10. The Guardians explain that M10 is one of the rare frontier lanterns that works in the galaxy's fringes, and receives little training compared to those employed in central sectors. A Guardian called Ganthet proposes a break and takes both Hal and Kilowog to the commissary. On their way, Ganthet shows them a prototype Green Lantern spacecraft with advanced AI that can travel faster than anything in the world. While Ganthet informs them that the spacecraft can't be taken out without permission, it appears he secretly wants Hal to defy the orders. As orchestrated by Ganthet, Hal sneaks into the hangar to steal the spacecraft, only to find Kilowog there. The two get spotted by the Guardians, who implore them to stop, but Hal asks the AI to activate the Ultra Warp, which lets them escape. Hal renames the AI as Aya and convinces her to take a shorter time in activating the Ultra Warp. Aya and Razor are two original characters designed for the series, but they have quickly become fan favorites. The impromptu Ultra Warp causes the spacecraft to almost break apart, so Hal takes the wheels to manually drive the ship out of the wormhole. They get a signal that the Reds attacked another Frontier GL. Hal and Kilowog arrive at the scene of the battle and help the injured GL Shear. Hal and Kilowog fight off the Red Lanterns, but low power in Hal's ring proves a challenge. Kilowog helps Shear, while Hal Jordan creates his own hologram to make Razor follow it. As the Green Lantern's power completely depletes, Hal returns to his original human state. He runs towards the spacecraft, but the Red Lanterns follow him. Hal recites the Green Lantern's oath and plunges his hand into the ship's generator. A supercharged Hal Jordan shoots Razor and Zox away, but he himself falls unconscious. Hal wakes up on the ship with Kilowog and Shear beside him. It looks like he might have to cancel the date to find out who or what is killing the Green Lantern.
You think that will stop me?
Beware My Power, Part 2. The trio receives a call from the Guardians as they accuse Hal of treason and theft. Appa the Guardian refuses to believe in the existence of Red Lantern, but Kilowog testifies for Hal. Their communication is once again interrupted when Aya detects a Red Lantern killer drone. Hal cuts the call and blows up the drone, but it causes slight damage to the spacecraft, making it unable to initiate the ultra-warp travel. Back in Ola, the Guardians worry about certain mysterious truths coming out. On the other hand, Atrocitus admonishes Razor and Zox for failing to kill 3 Green Lanterns. They promise not to let their homeworld, Shard, get destroyed like the others. Razor also shows that he has placed a tracker on the Green Lantern's spacecraft. Unaware of this development, Hal and Kilowog decide to travel to Shier's home planet, where he could get treatment. Aya has reported that the damage in the ship will require several months to repair, and with Shier's condition worsening, there's not much choice. Once on the planet, Shier is treated by his wife, Biara, who is a geologist and a doctor. Shier also meets his little daughter, Amala. Kilowog is reminded of his own world, Bolavax Vic, which was destroyed. Aya reports to Hal about the tracking device detected, and although Hal destroys it, it's too late. The amazing CGI effects of the animated series add a bit extra flavor to the storytelling, and although Bruce Timm was initially reluctant to use CGI, we are glad he changed the decision. A large Atrocitus hologram appears, offering to protect the community if they turn over the Green Lantern. He promises to blow up the planet if they fail. The task of switching on the bomb befalls Razor, as Zox denotes him as a coward in front of Atrocitus. Josh Keaton voices Hal Jordan in the series, but he was unfamiliar with the character. Keaton not only read Green Lantern Rebirth, but also based his performance on Green Lantern Secret Origin. The GLs agree to surrender, but Biara has another plan. Hal directly confronts Atrocitus, and their fight takes place on the roof of the missile, while Kilowog and Shier enter from down under. As Shier tries to defuse the bomb, Kilowog stands guard. Kilowog fights off Razor as he is tasked to guard the explosives. However, it's too tough, and Razor feels responsible that several innocents will die. As Shier fails to reconfigure the bomb, he asks Kilowog to leave, as Kilowog would have done the same for his own planet. Meanwhile, Atrocitus proves stronger than Hal as he beats down and mocks the Green Lantern. As Atrocitus and Zox fly back to Shard, Hal follows them. Razor comes back to Shier and calls him a fool to stay behind, but Shier reminds him of hope and asks him to leave. At last, Shier sacrifices his life as the explosion occurs. Hal stops mid-chase and gets engulfed by the fire and destruction. Atrocitus and Zox assume that all the Green Lanterns have died, but Hal has survived. Razor comes back at Hal, and it seems that he blames himself for the lost lives. He doesn't mind getting beaten up or killed by Hal, but Hal is wiser, so he strips Razor of the ring and captures him. Kilowog appears before Hal with almost everyone on Shier's planet. Aya and the 2 Green Lanterns help the survivors with rehabilitation, and Biara feels proud of her husband's sacrifice. She informs them that their new planet will be named after Shier Rev. The episode ends with Hal promising to take down the Red Lanterns while they worry about what they should do with Razor. However, Hal and Kilowog soon have to deal with Violet Lanterns and witness the origin of the Blue Lanterns, which will become their greatest ally in the upcoming wars. Razor's Edge. The Guardians have another transmission with the Green Lanterns in the Interceptor. Appa Ali Apsa wants to punish Hal Jordan, but Ganthet suggests that Hal and Kilowog are appointed to put a stop to the Red Lantern's advancement. They also ask Hal to take care of the Razor situation. Hal and Kilowog take the help of Aya to find a nearby prison to keep Razor, and they arrive at the Spider Guild prison, headed by Warden Myglum, a giant spider. Myglum assures the Green Lanterns that no one has ever escaped their prison and has left without rehabilitation. This sounds dangerously suspicious, and like us, Hal feels something is off as he handovers the prisoner. Our hunch is right as Myglum restrains Razor in a torture machine that plays memories of his worst moments. Since Razor already feels guilty, he doesn't protest and is surprised that the Green Lanterns don't kill him. As Hal and Kilowog fly back, they notice something zooming past them. They try to find the creature, but Hal and Kilowog almost turn against each other. The creature turns out to be another alien called Goggin. Goggin is probably a nutcase, but honest enough to confess that he has escaped the Spider Guild prison. Hal decides to break into the prison and teases Goggin that if they are not dead, they will return for dinner. Meanwhile, Razor finds himself with his wife, Ilana. Unrest in his homeworld makes Razor join the militia to take down the evil warlords, but one day he returns home to find it in ruins and his wife murdered. In the meantime, Hal and Jordan sneak into one of the holding cells and find scratches on an empty torture machine. They soon find out, yet their power seems to be down due to yellow crystals being everywhere. The giant spiders quickly subdue Hal and Kilowog, and when they wake up, both are stuck in a cocoon while being held upside down. Myglam informs them that the yellow stone reduces the power of the Green Lantern and puts on a torture headpiece on them. Myglam also confesses to eating his prisoners once they are rehabilitated or turned insane. In the comics, yellow is the power of fear, while green is the power of will. This could be a subtle hint to the Sinestro Corps, which uses yellow crystal. In the meantime, Goggin panics, and Aya leaves to rescue the Green Lanterns. She finds her roads blocked by the yellow crystal, so she looks for Razor. The man in question relives how his rage brought the Red Lantern's ring to him, and Atrocitus became his master. Aya appears before him as his dead wife, and tells him about Hal and Kilowog breaking into the prison. She also informs him how Kilowog saved the civilization. Razor reveals that he was aware of the visions being unreal, but is unwilling to go back. Aya ignores him and helps him get free. However, to her horror, he leaves for the ship. But this was only to get back his red power ring. Razor helps the Green Lanterns get free before Myglam eats them. It's a rather uncanny coincidence that Myglam traps prisoners in nightmares, as the man voicing Myglam is Robert Englund, who is famous for playing Freddy Krueger, the Dream Demon in Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Razor, Hal, and Kilowog fight off the Spider Sentinels and Myglam, defeating them once and for all. After the battle, Razor removes his ring and returns it to Hal. Hal appoints Goggin as the new warden, and he locks up the spider guards in the cell. In a great twist, Hal returns the ring to Razor and asks him to join the team in their cause.
Stop that now or I'm turning the ship right around.
Into the Abyss. As the Interceptor continues its journey in frontier space, the odd crew of Hal, Kilowog, and Razor try to adjust to each other. Well, not entirely, as Kilowog still distrusts and despises Razor, who too seems bothered by Kilowog's uncouth and brutish attitude. They suddenly get a distress call from a cargo ship. The captain of the ship seeks help as he is trapped in front of a pinhole. Razor explains to Hal that a pinhole is a microscopic black hole at the center of a whirlpool of energy. As the crew arrives in front of the pinhole, they try to pull off the ship with the Green Lantern's power, but it doesn't work. Even the cables from the ship are affected by the gravitational pull of the pinhole, so the crew goes out to help. They manage to attach the cables to the Interceptor and head inside to rescue the crew. However, it's only the captain, as Hal notices the ship contains eggs ready to hatch. Aya reads the ship's log and finds that the eggs are Spegnarian, a rare species whose planet got destroyed by volcanic activities. Hal decides to take the captain back to the Interceptor and later haul the ship. Hal leaves Kilowog and Razor to defend the ship, but their mutual hatred soon turns them against each other. Once again, Hal comes back as the mediator. This series is full of coincidences. For example, the Interceptor crew being part of the Transformers. Jason Spisak, who voices Razor, was in the Transformers Robots in Disguise, 2000. Gray Griffin, voicing Aya, and Kevin Michael Richardson, voicing Kilowog, were in the movie Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, 2009. On the other hand, Richardson and Keaton were also a part of the Transformers Prime, 2010. While the ship almost falls into the pinhole, Aya suddenly stops working, and the captain forcibly pulls the Interceptor, causing the cables to come loose. As the ship nears the crushing zone, Kilowog ventures outside and starts pulling the ship, while Razor and Hal escape being crushed. They notice the creatures are hatching and feeding on the power lines. When Razor blasts off two creatures, Hal once again reminds him of the promise to protect them. The captain tries to inch closer to pull the ship, but his lack of knowledge of the console results in some misfires. Inside the ship, Hal and Razor avoid the creepy bugs and enter the engine system, only to find it frozen. Razor claims he can repair it if he has more help, And as the bugs try to enter the engine system, Hal notices something peculiar. He explains to Razor that the creepy bugs are Aya. She abandoned her post and possessed parts of the ship to act like bugs. Hal continues that she had cut off the wires to save power. Hal had ignored Aya's suggestion earlier and bet it would have saved a lot of time. The bugs possessed by Aya help power up the engine, but the ship is not out of danger yet. As Kilowog's shoulders give away, he starts falling. And luckily, Razor rescues Kilowog, which finally seems to bring them together. It's time for Hal Jordan, the pilot, to shine as he uses his outstanding flying skills to skim past the whirlpool and lift off. Hal finally brings the ship back near their interceptor. The real bugs appear too cute to be a nuisance, but Aya insists on joining the Green Lantern Corps. As Kilowog argues that she would need a body for that, Aya finally appears as an android. Heir apparent. As the Green Lanterns are keen on finding more to join their war against the Red Ones, the Interceptor tracks another ring nearby. Hal asks an overly excited Aya to stay back, and Razor is with her, while he and Kilowog venture to find the ring wearer. They come upon Queen Iolande of Betrasis, who has just been crowned. Iolande reports that they have a resident GL called Dulac. She also introduces the GLs to her younger brother, Prince Ragnar, who seems to harbor a fascination for GL's another knight called Kothak, seeks to marry Iolande, as it's customary for an unmarried queen to wed any knight. However, Kothak seems unfit and power-hungry, so Dulac enters, claiming to defeat Kothak in a competition in the arena. Later at night, Hal and Dulac discuss the issue when Prince Ragnar eavesdrops. He serves them drinks and gets interested in learning how Green Lanterns get appointed. During the competition the next day, Dulac seems missing, and Kothak mocks the GLs. Hal volunteers to compete with Kothak the next day to save the Queen. However, he can barely ride the alien bike, and Queen Iolande helps him. Kothak tries to trip him up while Kilowog watches the practice. During the practice, Hal's bike malfunctions and goes up in flames, while Hal saves himself with the ring's power. It appears somebody has sabotaged the vehicle. On the other hand, Razor can barely stay back, and when Aya traces a weak energy trail, he asks her to accompany him as they go to investigate. There is some undeniable chemistry between the two, right from when Razor was just a prisoner. They find Dulac's body in a crypt and his power ring missing. This episode is loosely based on the Green Lantern Corps Comics Volume 2 and issues number 1 to number 3. Razor and Aya sneakily deliver the news to Hal and Kilowog before the competition, who decide to set up a trap for the killer. During the competition, Kothak and Hal get thrown off their individual rides and start fighting physically. Meanwhile, Prince Ragnar serves Kilowog another drink. Kilowog chokes on the drink and dies, sending Iolande and others into a panic. Hal stops the fight and tries to wake him up, while Kothak is still eager to finish the fight and win over the Queen. Kilowog's ring tries to search for the next worthy bearer and stops short in front of Iolande, who suspiciously touches her necklace, and finally, it stops in front of Ragnar. Ragnar wears the ring and proclaims himself as the next ruler of Betrasis, shushing up Kothak's claim to finish the fight. Ragnar reveals that he killed Dulac to get the ring, but since it didn't go to him, Ragnar had to kill Kilowog. However, there is nothing to worry about as Kilowog was only playing possum and reveals that he didn't drink the poison. However, Ragnar has bought off some guards as he instructs them to fight the GLs while he takes Iolande hostage and flees. The threat to his queen worries Kothak, and he helps the Lanterns fight the rogue soldiers. Kilowog gives Hal his ring back since he had to strip it off earlier for the combat. Hal, Kilowog, Kothak, and other faithful soldiers manage to prevent Ragnar from escaping, and Iolande reveals herself as a Green Lantern to stop Ragnar. Dulac's ring has actually chosen Iolande to be the worthy one. Kothak swears his loyalty to Iolande and gives up his claims for the throne, while Iolande refuses to tag along with Hal as her people need their queen. Lost Planet. Kilowog wants the Interceptor crew to follow regulations, and Hal couldn't care less, which is a problem when undertaking a mission. The team is on the lookout for more GL recruits, and Aya spots Sheer Rev's ring on a planet. This comes with the bad news that the planet is going to be hit by an asteroid in around 5 minutes. Hal and Kilowog join forces to slow down the asteroid, but the Interceptor's power is not enough. Hal decides on using their own charger to power up, but Kilowog reminds him that, as per regulations, it should never be below 20%. Hal ignores him, and they are able to slow down the time of impact by 6 hours. The crew descends on the planet and finds a group resting. The group asks the GLs if they crashed, and Kilowog notices that the group's leader, General Zartok, wields a Thalian moonstaff that's used during wars. As Hal suggests splitting up, Kilowog pairs up with Zartok, Drusa pairs up with Aya, and Razor leaves to work alone. Hal is left to accompany Groot as they look for the new Green Lantern. However, Groot, not to be confused with Groot, is an alien with fewer words. Clancy Brown, voicing Zartok, had earlier voiced Parallax in Green Lantern 2011, while Juliet Landau, voicing Drusa, voiced Labella in Green Lantern Emerald Knights 2011. Groot soon shows his true colors as he throws Hal into a ditch, and Hal survives because of his ring. Drusa pretends to hurt her legs and asks Aya to take her to the ship. Once there, Drusa takes over the Interceptor's system and shuts Aya. Kilowog is mightily impressed by Zartok, who he assumes to be a great warrior of Thalius Prime. Zartok gives him a detailed account of the war, only to reveal that he was the leader of the opponent group, the Cardonian Horde. Razor has a somewhat different experience as someone sneaks up on him and teases him. The person introduces himself as Saint Walker and shows Razor the wreckage of spaceships from rogue and evil groups like the Cardonians. Razor starts fighting Saint Walker, who expertly avoids all the attacks and defends himself. Saint Walker even serves up some pointers for Razor and finally subdues him. He shows Razor the green power ring and gives it to him. However, Saint Walker is not the Green Lantern, so he leaves. Hal finds Razor, and together they try to warn the others. Meanwhile, Zartok tries to kill Kilowog, but Kilowog wins, and Zartok gets into the Interceptor as they try to escape the planet. Hal and Razor notice Kilowog following the Interceptor and join him. They succeed in stopping the Interceptor from leaving. Razor heads inside and throws the culprits outside while he rescues Aya and destroys Drusa's gadget that controls the ship. Hal asks Kilowog to leave with the others as he realizes that the planet is alive and the ring is for him. This time, Kilowog is ready to break the rules and he stays back. This episode is loosely based on Alan Moore's Mogo Doesn't Socialize, and early drafts for the episode showed Mogo as a spiritual place, but with some budget restraints, the characters could be given a spiritual quest. As Hal drills a hole and places the ring, the planet gets turned into a Green Lantern. Mogo destroys the asteroid and thanks Hal for saving him. The planet calls himself Mogo and promises to aid the GLs whenever needed. While the others leave, Mogo seeks to keep the evildoers stranded on the planet until they rehabilitate. Reckoning. The Green Lanterns approach near the Red Lantern mothership shard. They monitor the activities on the mothership and note down the time of the waste dump. This irritates Razor as he wants action and some payback. Razor secretly tweaks the control and leaves quietly, but Aya notices him. She tries to stop Razor and even threatens to alert Hal and Kilowog. However, Razor is not worried as he switches on a device that plunges the Interceptor into darkness. Aya returns and stabilizes the system. As she informs the GLs about Razor abandoning the ship, they get worried, and rightly so. Razor gets greeted by some bewildered Red Lanterns, and as he recharges his ring, the others inform Zilius, Zox, and Atrocitus. Razor powers up and visits Atrocitus to kill him, but Atrocitus has ensured that Razor is falsely recharged. The Red Lantern Oath is heard in full for the first time, but it's different from the comics, so it sounds cooler. Also, it was changed to be more kid-friendly. Although, with its dark and complicated plots and several deaths, the series is hardly for the kids. Atrocitus and Zox restrain and torture Razor to reveal information about the Green Lantern. However, he doesn't oblige. Meanwhile, the GLs realize that Razor could be in danger, so they ride an asteroid to reach Shard. Hal and Kilowog get spotted by a few guards, but are able to hide. Hal dresses up as a Red Lantern and enters the chapel of Atrocitus. The priest explains to Hal how the Guardians of the Universe wanted everybody to kneel to them, and their automaton, Manhunter, pillaged the cities. Atrocitus found the red energy of wrath and vengeance. Hal pretends to hit Kilowog as they escape. Josh Keaton also voices Manhunters, while Jason Spisak is more popularly known as the voice of Kid Flash. They interrupt Atrocitus and Zilius, who are trying to execute Razor. Hal Jordan, dressed as a Red Lantern soldier, calls himself Wrath, a clever move by the writers. As Aya causes a diversion, Hal and Kilowog help Razor get free. The GLs fight Atrocitus and his Red Lanterns while Razor recharges his ring. As they try to escape, a bull-like Red Lantern hits Kilowog, injuring him. On the other hand, Atrocitus catches Aya and dismembers her legs. He threatens the GLs to come and get Aya. Razor insists on bringing back Aya and asks Hal to take Kilowog to the ship. Razor engages Atrocitus in a battle. When Atrocitus reveals that he was the one who instigated war and unrest on Razor's planet. He also killed Razor's wife, Ilana. This sends Razor into a mad rage as he severely injures Atrocitus and is ready to kill him. However, Aya reminds him that all of them will die this way. Razor listens to Aya and takes her back to the ship. As Aya recuperates, she shows the data she collected from Shard, which shows that Atrocitus has arranged an armada to attack Ola.
I didn't forget your training. Engage! Lock! Throw!
Fear itself. It's still far back home, and the Interceptor is running low on food supplies. Aya finds a planet with some edibles, and the crew decides to halt on the planet to refill their supplies. Hal and Kilowog venture onto the planet to find food but go their separate ways as Kilowog relies on his sense of smell, while Hal tries to be more sophisticated and uses an edible tracker made by Aya. Razor doesn't join them as Hal reveals that Volkrigians like him can store their food and energy for months. However, Razor's reclusive behavior has deeper issues, and he gets bothered as Aya constantly checks up on him. Meanwhile, Kilowog comes across a Bolivaxian woman gathering food, and it could be love at first sight, but a jellyfish-like creature attacks him. The Bolivaxian woman called Galia saves Kilowog as he loses consciousness, while Hal finds his power ring not working. He finds bizarre fruits, which are non-edible, to say the least. Kilowog's nightmare shows him his memories with his wife and children until the planet blows apart. He wakes up inside Galia's house, who feeds him a special soup and asks about his family. Later, Galia takes Kilowog to meet her tribe. The leader of the tribe seeks Kilowog's help in defeating the Nadar, the creatures that steal their most important ingredient. Hal gets defeated and surrounded by several Nadars. Soon, one of the Nadar guides him somewhere deep on the planet. This series avoids showing the origin of Hal Jordan as a Green Lantern, as Warner Brothers have already done that with the 2011 Green Lantern movie featuring Ryan Reynolds. And we already know how that turned out. In the Interceptor, Aya catches Razor recharging his power ring with the Red Lantern battery he stole from Shard. Razor seems uncomfortable, repeating the vile oath every time he needs a recharge. Back on the planet, Kilowog trains the tribe to fight the Nadar, while Lef, the warrior, is not too happy with Kilowog replacing him. The Nadar that befriends Hal takes him to a cave to show it's filled with the Yellowstone that was earlier found in an asteroid prison. The truth about the Nadar appearing hostile becomes clear as Norm, the Nadar, seizes the crystal from Hal to keep him safe. Galia cooks soup for an injured Kilowog and adds some part of the Aurum or the yellow crystal. Once again, Kilowog experiences fear in the form of a nightmare. He drinks the soup and assembles the tribe to fight the Nadars. Hal accompanies the Nadars as they approach the tribe. Kilowog's paranoia makes him think that Hal betrayed him. Galia makes Kilowog wear a crown with Aurum, which further makes him crazy. Kilowog tries to kill Hal, while the rest of the tribe fights the Nadars. It's still adorable when little Thela tries to kill Norm, but it removes her Aurum crown and spear. Hal also tries to make Kilowog see sense and removes the Aurum, but he still tries to kill Hal. Kilowog's sense returns at the last moment, and quite dramatically, but now Lef rallies the others against Kilowog. Galia defends Kilowog, and he removes the Aurum crown from her, revealing how it makes everyone paranoid. The Nadars help, and the tribe realizes that the Nadars are not their enemies. Hal further explains that the Nadars are immune to Aurum and consume it as food, but they know it's harmful to others. Finally, as the Green Lanterns say goodbye, Lef and Kilowog reconcile. While Kilowog promises to return to Galia, the tribe gives them edible sugar vine plants. Back on the ship, Aya changes a verse of the Red Lantern's oath, and Razor lies that it works to appease her. In Love and War. A lovelorn and mopey Kilowog has brought down the mood of the Interceptor crew as Hal tries different methods to cheer him up. A sudden attack from a transparent space squid brings the Lanterns to fight, but all three are captured. Lucky for them, violet energy beams save them from the monster. Queen Agapo and her niece Giata introduce themselves as the Violet Lanterns, or Star Sapphire Corps, making Kilowog wonder how many colored lanterns are there. According to the comics, there are 9 green for will, red for rage, yellow for fear, violet for love, blue for hope, orange for greed, indigo for compassion, black for death, and white for life. Agapo explains that they are powered by love, and once they were mates of the Guardians. Kilowog finding it hard to visualize is a relatable reaction, but it's true to the comics. Agapo reads Kilowog's memories and realizes he is in love. She secretly sends a purple ring to Galia. When the Interceptor arrives at Zamaron, the home planet of the Star Sapphire, Hal and Kilowog go their separate ways again. Kilowog notices Galia in the Star Sapphire costume and follows her. However, she doesn't clarify how she came to be, and instead freezes Kilowog in a crystal. Razor and Aya notice Kilowog's vitals as weak and inform Hal, who is rather busy, as Giata throws herself over him. It appears Agapo and Giata want to trap Hal in a similar crystal, but Giata might be falling in love with Hal. Following her aunt's instructions, Giata tries different methods to entice Hal and keep him from investigating Kilowog, while Agapo finds out that Hal already has a true love on Earth. Queen Agapo sends a ring to Carol Ferris on Earth, who has been desperately searching for Hal all this while. As the authorities ask her to give up on the search, Carol breaks down. The ring approaches Carol and she wears it, which makes her appearance more sensuous. On the other hand, Razor and Aya approach the Queen to inquire about Kilowog, but Agapo only allows Razor to enter, as Aya is an emotionless robot. Aya conducts her investigations and finds Kilowog in stasis. She gets detected by other Star Sapphires, including Galia. Aya escapes and blasts through the castle to confront Agapo. As per the comics, the Star Sapphires used gemstones to focus their powers, not rings like lanterns. Yet, somehow, this works better. Carol appears before Hal and is about to embrace him when she notices Giata. Carol misunderstands Hal and gets angry. She hurts Hal and Giata, while Hal grapples with Carol's presence. Carol's Star Sapphire costume is a simplified American comics version. Hal manages to restrain Carol with a warm embrace and make her realize the truth. Carol and Hal kiss as she finally understands how Hal is a brave one defending Earth. Carol explains to Giata that true love is about letting go and sacrifice. She gives the ring back to Giata, who helps Carol return home. Hal finds Kilowog and rescues him from crystallization. Meanwhile, Razor chooses to believe Aya over Agapo, but the Queen makes Razor see that Aya has taken on the appearance of his dead wife, Ilana. Agapo tries to kill Razor as there is no love inside him, but the GLs arrive to save them. Giata tries to make Agapo understand that she is going the wrong way with love. The Star Sapphire Corps puts the men in love in stasis, protecting them from harm and harnessing their power. While Agapo might not be far off when she says men instigate war, the episode tends to be quite stereotypical. As the Interceptor crew leaves, Agapo calls the giant squid Sebulung to stop them, indicating that the Star Sapphire rescuing the team was planned. However, this time, Giata helps them escape, while Kilowog is shocked to see Galia has sided with the Violets. Giata promises that she has a lot to teach the Star Sapphires. Regime change. Iolande goes to visit her imprisoned brother with food, but Ragnar is still very angry and promises to finish the Green Lanterns. His rage brings him the Red Power Ring. In Ola, Ganthet and Sade watch as an army of Green Lanterns leave to meet up with Hal's crew and fight the Red Lanterns. Hal calls the Guardians and asks Appa if he is ready with any strategy to stop the invasion of Ola, but Appa's decision makes him worry. Hal insists that the Guardians talk to the Red Lantern Corps and tells them that the Manhunter story is untrue. Appa ignores him as usual, and the Interceptor gets a distress call from Iolande about the Red Lantern attacking. The crew goes to Betrasis and finds out that Ragnar has usurped the throne as a Red Lantern. He has imprisoned Iolande and calls on his Red Lantern friends to capture Hal's crew. Although Ragnar is a mainstream DC Comics actor, he is made a Red Lantern only for this series. Hal and his friends escape the Reds, but find the Interceptor guarded by more Red Lantern soldiers. As they hide, they encounter a resistance group headed by Kothak. Kothak shows them that Red Lanterns has installed a bomb called the Liberator, which destroyed Rev's home. Hal now calls up Ganthet and Sade with the same proposition of revealing the truth, but Ganthet confesses it can't be done. The Guardians reveal that prior to the Green Lanterns, they had created the emotionless Manhunters as space cops. However, due to their lack of understanding of emotions and other humane factors, the Manhunters destroyed planets, which now are a part of the Forgotten Zone. Ganthet asks Hal to work on disarming the Liberator and promises to speak to Appa. This episode pays homage to the memory of Ian Abercrombie, who voices Ganthet as he passed away in January 2012, before this aired. Things don't go according to Ganthet's plan, as Appa is not only as stubborn as ever, but he realizes that Ganthet is the one who aided Hal in stealing the Interceptor. Appa calls in a meeting of the Guardians and publicly humiliates Ganthet before banishing him from Oa. In Betrasis, Hal rescues Iolande from the prison, and the 3 GLs head for the Liberator, who alerts the Red Lanterns. Ragnar and his troops attack, which helps Razor and Aya take control of their ship. However, disarming the Liberator still seems impossible, and Hal calls the Guardians for help. Appa cuts the call abruptly as a payback, and at this point, Appa seems to be a greater villain than the Red Lantern Corps. The producers of the show have made Red Lanterns the main villains to keep it seamless with the ongoing comics storyline at that time. Hal realizes no help will come from the Guardians, but Sade has sided with Ganthet, as she has changed the coordinates of his pod. Ganthet uses the power of hope to help the GLs, which makes their lantern go blue. The battle doesn't go in favor of the Greens, and when all hope seems lost, a blue light engulfs the planet. The GLs feel more charged up, while the Red Lanterns lose the power of their ring. Kothak and his troop also arrive to catch Ragnar and his team. The GLs decide to take the Liberator outside into space, where it explodes like a light show. The new Blue Lantern battery also leaves the ship and goes into space, while Ganthet quits his role as a Guardian and goes his own way. Flight Club. Hal Jordan looks for his lantern, unaware that it has turned blue and left on its own when he gets a call from Appa Aliapsa. Hal is angry with Appa for what he has done with Ganthet and uses some fine adjectives for him, which Appa overhears. The feeling is mutual. The Guardians currently need help with the invasion. Bleez, a female Red Lantern, has led the crew to breach a gate, but it requires a code, and Appa explains that the code resides in a lighthouse, which was used by a Green Lantern called Talvarus to get past the maelstrom. Aya spots Talvarus's ring in the prison asteroid. As Hal and the rest arrive at the prison asteroid, Goggin meets them with complaints. The poor guy is already fed up with being the warden. They find Talvarus, or rather his skeleton, in one of the torture rooms, with his ring already energyless. However, they detect a secret message inscribed by Talvarus, which informs them that the secret code of the lighthouse now stays with his ex-cellmate, Bith Rock. The name makes Goggin fart and inks himself in fear. Bith Rock turns out to be a Thanagarian prisoner who leads Thanagarian miscreants like thieves and pirates. It's finally some good comedy, and Bith Rock adds to the charm with his casual behavior while he remains strung up on the wall. Bith Rock suggests that he will deliver the code if Kilowog and Hal fight another Thanagarian called Bumpy. When Kilowog loses, Bith Rock increases the stakes, saying that if Hal wins, he will get free. However, Bith Rock helps Hal with a few pointers about Bumpy's weakness. Hal has finally gotten his match in Bith Rock, as both seem clever and jerk. Hal wins, but Bith Rock refuses to deliver the code unless his men are freed. But when a Red Lantern ship approaches the prison, Bith Rock pleads with the GLs to help him. Bleez asks the warden to meet, and poor Goggin again inks himself. Hal takes the opportunity to fire Goggin from his post and appoints Bumpy instead. The second season would have covered what happened to Talvarus's ring after the end of this episode. It would also have included the Sinestro Corps, or the Black Lanterns had the series not been cancelled. Bumpy leads the Red Lanterns to Talvarus's holding cell, and Bith Rock agrees to make a deal. Hal refuses to make a deal while Bith wears a helmet that covers his eye, and so Aya removes it. Bith notoriously asks Aya to be his wife, but Hal brings him back to the code. Bith gives him the code, but while they try to escape, Bith sneaks away and speaks in the intercom, offering to make a deal with the Reds. He even betrays the Green Lantern crew, which is captured by the Red Lanterns. Bith gives Bleez another code and takes the Interceptor instead. He goes to the asteroid belt and uses the real code to open the gate. However, It was only a simulation shown by the torture helmet that Aya had placed on Bith to get the real code. This is a fine moment for the show to prove that Hal is the cleverest of all, and even Razor is impressed. Bith has no option other than to join Hal's crew as they make their way through the prison. Bith was the first foe of the Silver Age Hawkmen in the comics. The Red Lanterns spot them, and the group, including Bumpy, enters the holding place with all the Thanagarian pirates. Hal pleads that the Red Lanterns are a menace to the intergalactic race, and the pirates must help them. Bith-Rock agrees to help them and mends his ways so that Hal can help them escape. Hal makes a hole in the roof, and Bith suddenly changes his stance, asking his people to escape to freedom without getting involved in war. Hal remains unmoved by the betrayal and hides with his team as the Reds finally break into the room. They assume it to be empty and leave with their ship to find the Green Lanterns. Equipped with the real code, Hal and the team are ready to leave, but Kilowog realizes Bith stole Tavares' ring from him. However, Bith's joy is momentary, as the Red Lanterns soon find him and his friends. Invasion. Hal's team has the secret code to access the lighthouse, and now they only need to destroy it so that the passage between the Forgotten Zone and Owen Zone is blocked once and for all. On the other hand, Atrocitus tortures Bith-Rock and tries to get the code out of him, but Bith wants payment. At Mogo, Drusa and General Zartok have received a message from the Red Lanterns and await their arrival, while Saint Walker gets tired of waiting for the universe's savior. He claims that after his own world got destroyed by Red Lanterns, Mogo called out to him in a dream. Mogo asks Saint Walker to climb a mountain to get his answer. Meanwhile, Aya finally uses the code they retrieved from Bith to open the gate. They enter, but the lighthouse's defense system starts attacking the ship. The crew finds out that a few Red Lanterns are already there, while the rest of the Armada approaches from behind. The Interceptor returns, and Aya volunteers to travel through the spiral beams to reach the lighthouse. She succeeds in her mission and even alters the defense system to target the Reds as the enemy. On the other hand, Atrocitus' ship arrives in Mogo to pick someone up, and Saint Walker almost abandons his climb to go back and get revenge. However, Mogo stops him by pointing out that Saint Walker shouldn't bother with that and must finish his climb. In the comics, Saint Walker goes on a journey with his family, who dies along the way. So the slight plot change could be to make the Red Lanterns a greater foe to all alien life form. Atrocitus' ship follows the Interceptor as it leaves the lighthouse. Razor has already set up a remote detonation system, which gets scanned by Atrocitus' ship. Atrocitus asks Zox to set up several Liberator bombs inside the Maelstrom. When they are considerably far away, Razor switches the bomb, and the lighthouse gets destroyed. However, it causes the asteroids and rocks to cover them. Hal and Aya's expert flying helps them out of the situation, but barely without a scratch. Kilowog's claustrophobia almost kicked in while the crew took a breather to know that the Ultra Warp feature was now completely repaired with nothing to stop them from returning to Oa. We might have spoken too fast. Leaving Aya in charge of the ship, Hal, Kilowog, and Razor go to examine Atrocitus' damaged ship, but find no one inside. Razor realizes it's a trap as the ship blows up, and Razor saves everyone with a force field bubble. As the Lanterns return, they find Aya attacking them with the Interceptor. It's revealed that Atrocitus had picked up Drusa so she could use her control device on Aya. Aya takes the Interceptor to Oa with the Ultra Warp, leaving the three Lanterns in horror, but that's not all. The Liberators detonate, leaving a gaping passage among the asteroids that allows Atrocitus' armada to enter. However, as they say, hope is never lost. Saint Walker finishes climbing the mountain, but cannot find anyone. He still refuses to bow down to the Red Lanterns and promises to keep fighting, hoping they will win. This brings the Blue Lantern to him and the Blue Ring of Power. However, as they say, hope is never lost. Homecoming. This episode marks the end of the first segment. Kilowog decides to stay back and slow down the Red Armada, while Hal and Razor find a way to travel to Oa. At Oa, Salak detects a ship entering, and Drusa makes Aya lie to them about Hal and Kilowog being injured. As a teardrop escapes Aya, it seems she can sense what's happening, but is being physically controlled. However, Can AI robots cry? After landing, Atrocitus and crew attack Salic and the Guardian. As Sade gets injured, Salic asks them to retreat. He controls the core while Atrocitus's crew works on breaking the doors. Surprisingly, Hal wakes up on Earth in front of Carol's office. He seems to have forgotten everything about the invasion as he spends time with Carol. Meanwhile, Kilowog faces the Great Armada alone, but in a super display of willpower, he uses extravagant machine guns to fire at the Armada. Despite the fantastic show of valor, Kilowog might just succumb to war when he suddenly receives a power boost. As expected, a blue light appears, with Saint Walker as the first Blue Lantern. He has also brought a friend along, the living planet Mogo, the Green Lantern. On Earth, Carol gets suspicious of Hal's behavior and realizes he doesn't remember anything about being the Green Lantern. Carol takes Hal to his locker and finds the lantern hidden there. She makes Hal touch the ring to recharge, which makes Hal remember what exactly happened. The memories show that Hal and Razor went to Zamaron to ask the Star Sapphires for help. Queen Agapo seemed to have mended her ways, thanks to her advisor, Giata. Hal asks them to teleport him to Earth so that he can quickly travel to Oa. Agapo warns him that this may disorient him, but Hal is willing to take the risk. As Hal remembers everything, including the Green Lantern's oath, he takes leave from Carol but promises to return for dessert. Giata tells Razor that there is still love in his heart, which he can use to help Hal. So right on cue and quite heroically, Razor is ported to the Interceptor, where he saves Aya from being reprogrammed by Drusa. While episodes like this are mind-blowing, to say the least, they were still not enough to save the series. It got cancelled after just 26 episodes as the toy sales tanked, again due to the abysmal reception and poor box office performance of the Green Lantern live-action movie. The fight between Kilowog's crew and the Armada becomes difficult, as Shard dispatches a host of Liberators to kill Mogo. Kilowog positions Saint Walker centrally in front of Mogo's ring, which helps Walker amplify Mogo's shots. The beam destroys all the Liberators and shuts down Shard and the Armada for good. In Oa, Atrocitus and his group break through the fortress and almost kill Salic when Hal returns. Hal proposes that the Green Lanterns will help restore the Forgotten Zone, but Atrocitus turns deaf ears. As they fight, Atrocitus brutally pounds Hal, but Sade reminds Appa that Hal still has his willpower. Hal wins the fight with a great punch, but stops Zilius Zox and the other Red Lanterns from leaving. This time, Appa promises to keep Hal's word and help restore the Forgotten Zone. Appa even thanks Hal for his great service, but Hal has other business, like going for dessert with Carol. New Guy. The Red invasion is stopped. Yet a tear in the fabric of the universe brings in a gigantic and terrifying automaton, the Anti-Monitor, which takes over Biot, the homeworld of the Manhunters, and reactivates them. Hal returns to Earth to date Carol, but she is still very skeptical. Moreover, she has replaced Hal at work since he was away for months. Hal has to leave soon as a crane accident is reported live, but he promises to be back for dinner. Hal rescues a man from the accident site, but Guy Gardner, the new Green Lantern, takes away his thunder. The Green Lanterns fighting the Yellow Crane dispenses the canonical myth that GL rings are weak against anything yellow. Hal is shocked and dismayed that he got replaced even as the Green Lantern of Earth. Guy Gardner seems like a jerk with a heart of gold and has built a good rapport with everybody on Earth and Oa while Hal was away. The two hang out and exchange notes, but soon get into a commendable and interesting fight. As the Anti-Monitor sends a beam, its vibrations reach Earth, and it wakes up the long-dormant Manhunters inside a historical tomb in California. The Manhunters blast off Professor Noam Chilton, who had been working in the ruin. Hal and Guy's fight is interrupted when a news report by Vanessa Swelton shows that unearthly energy has affected the glacier. Hal and Guy venture into the ruins to find out more about the matter and find Professor Chilton's body. The Manhunters soon attack them, and the two GLs must fight together to take them down. Hal brings down the tomb's roof, ensuring the Manhunter robots are buried in the ground. As they come outside, Hal calls Salic to learn about the matter. Initially, Salic considers it a joke, but gets afraid of the impending doom if Hal is right. Reporter Vanessa and her cameraman arrive at the spot in a chopper to report the matter, and the GLs assure her the matter is solved. However, To prove them wrong, the three manhunters emerge from the snow and launch an attack on the civilian. The manhunters detect emotion inside Vanessa and her cameraman, which is a crime according to the manual of the manhunters. Hal also insists that Vanessa leave, but she stays to get more real-time footage that can earn her a promotion. The McDuffie's Bar, shown in this episode, is a homage to DC comic writer Dwayne McDuffie. Speaking of writing, we feel the writers have done an outstanding job keeping the thrill alive by introducing a greater foe and higher stakes. Hal and Guy find it extremely challenging to fight off the robots, and as the manhunters now target a nearby city, it's high time the GLs focus on taking these robots down. Hal and Guy coordinate with each other as they destroy the three manhunters one by one. They apply sports moves and puns to destroy each manhunter. After the crisis is averted, Guy gets emotionally overwhelmed and hugs Hal on live TV. However, it's sad news for Hal, as he has missed the date again, and Carol calls to break up. Carol rightly says that Hal must save the galaxy and could do more than forsake it all for her. Guy seems to understand the emotions and uplifts his mood, but only momentarily. Guy earns a good punch from Hal as he jokes about getting Carol's number and dating her. Hal barely gets time to recover from the breakup as he gets called to Oa. During the meeting, Appa releases Hal from his duty on Earth, and Hal gets pissed and is ready to quit when Appa appoints him as the honor guard of the Green Lantern Corps, and his duty will be to patrol all of Guardian Space. However, this job will take Hal into a different dimension and fight monsters that are set on destroying the universe. As we embark on the second segment of the series, be prepared to witness mind games played by the great Sinestro and shocking deaths that will leave the characters scarred. The McDuffie's Bar, shown in this episode, is a homage to DC comic writer Dwayne McDuffie.
You still got it, Tomar-Ray!
Reboot. The story begins with Green Lantern's Hal Jordan and Tomar-Ray approach a planet's Manhunter temple. Tomar-Ray is a no-nonsense GL who follows all protocols, while Hal ignores his advice and ventures inside. They find three dormant manhunters who suddenly wake up and attack them. As they try to stop the three manhunters, three other manhunters join the chase, and the GLs barely make it alive. Hal and Tomar-Ray report it to the Guardians, and although Tomar-Ray doesn't agree with Hal's conviction of someone else puppeteering the manhunters, he suggests that a team should be appointed to Hal to investigate. Hal further seeks the Interceptor for his travels and meets Kilowog, who is content training the new recruits. Kilowog makes a joke about Hal by making him fight a new recruit, who is a squirrel. Chip, the chipmunk of Sector 1014, defeats Hal with ease in a very entertaining fight, before Kilowog agrees to join Hal in his mission. Chip is not named in the show and is called Sector 1014. But his appearance and identity are confirmed in the comics. Hal is devastated to find that a new AI called Linos has replaced Aya. Linos informs Hal that the Guardians plan to reboot Aya. Hal takes the ship to the science building, and while Kilowog distracts the guard, Larvox, Hal sneaks in with Chip. Hal makes random conversations with a lonely Chassalon, while Chip replaces Aya's system with Linos. Chip was initially intended to be replaced by his comic counterpart's successor, Budge. However, we are fine with the adorable badass chipmunk. Hal and Chip leave just before the science director comes for the reboot, and Linos has difficulty making her believe that he is not Aya. Tomar-Ray further confronts Hal at the door of the ship and reveals that he has detected a feeble signal that could activate the Manhunters. Although Tomar-Ray completes the trio, he is nowhere as snarky and entertaining as Razor, who is taking a sabbatical. With Aya online, Hal, Tomar-Ray, and Kilowog detect where the signal is coming from and arrive at Biot, the graveyard of the Manhunters. As Tomar-Ray detects another signal, the robots wake up and start attacking the GLs. They escape into a building only to find it's a Manhunter building factory. The GLs again get spotted, and this is double the trouble as they get attacked and surrounded from both sides. Hal calls Aya to shoot at the building with the ship, bringing down the building on the crew and the Manhunters. The crew escapes being crushed, but Anti-Monitor comes out of the damaged building and shares his plan of destroying every life in the universe. Anti-Monitor uses energy blasts from his palms to consume everything in his path. The Interceptor's attacks prove futile against the robotic monster. However, as Anti-Monitor attacks them, Hal sacrifices his life to save the others.
Thought I'd had a few pot shots of my own.
Steam Lantern. After being blasted by the Anti-Monitor, Hal Jordan doesn't die, but falls through another tear in the universe to another dimension. Hal lands in a steampunk world, where a woman called Lady Catherine encourages the people to fight against slavery. Several rudimentary robots with a screen displaying the face of a man called Duke Nigel Fortenberry approach the woman and the resistance to attack. However, before Hal can take any step, a costumed vigilante with the Green Lantern light appears and saves the woman. Hal also helps them eliminate the rest of the robots, and the man asks Hal to follow. The mysterious hero Gil Broom, the Steam Lantern, and Lady Catherine usher Hal into their blimp. Gil explains that he modeled himself after a Green Lantern who once arrived on their planet. This could be a reference to Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern. Catherine is the one behind the science of the costume and uses an element called hard-to-findium to power the suit of her bay, Broom. Gil and Catherine explain how Nigel is a scientist who promised to save the world and led the Industrial Revolution, but has instead turned the world into slavery. They also inform Hal about the Anti-Monitor that was devouring their son's energy and was thrown out of the dimension by Steam Lantern. Realizing that he is in a different dimension altogether, Hal seeks a way to communicate with his friend. Catherine suggests she can help him with it using Nigel's laboratory. Meanwhile, Kilowog refuses to believe that Hal is dead, while Tomar-Ray tries to sympathize. Hal's call interrupts their argument, and Hal asks his friends to meet near the rift in the universe. Nigel's robot suddenly attacks them, and Nigel starts blaming Steam Lantern for taking credit for saving the universe. Hal rescues Gil and Catherine from Nigel's robots and threatens Nigel before they return to the blimp. Hal notices something is eating Gil, and once Catherine has gone inside, Gil confesses that Nigel is right. A flashback shows that the Anti-Monitor was consuming the energy of all stars, so Duke Nigel secretly made a deal with the monster to save his planet. Nigel offered to send the Anti-Monitor to another universe to feed on. Unaware of this deal, Steam Lantern went to fight Anti-Monitor, but the giant didn't even notice him. Since Steam Lantern's blasts coincided with Nigel tearing up the universe, the people assumed Steam Lantern was their hero. After the story finishes, Hal finally reaches the rift and pries it open, while Gil also comes to help widen the rift. The name Gil Broom is taken from Green Lantern creators Gil Kane and John Broom. The other Green Lanterns also arrive in front of the rift, and Kilowog uses his powers to widen the rift and help Hal escape. But Duke Nigel suddenly comes after the blimp and asks Catherine to surrender. As Nigel starts shooting at the blimp, it catches fire, and Steam Lantern flies off to save Catherine. Duke Nigel Fortenberry is again named after Nigel Thornberry of The Wild Thornberrys 1998. Hal saves the blimp from crashing or going up in flames, but all three of them are captured by Duke Nigel, who takes them back to his lab. Finally, Gil agrees to confess to the public about not being the real hero, sending the Anti-Monitor to the other universe. His selfless confession earns him praise from the public, while Catherine assures him she will still love him. Duke Nigel gets bewildered by the outcome and finally understands the error in his ways, but it's now too late, as their son is dying, and life on their planet will soon end. Catherine suggests spending the last moment of their life drinking tea. Yes, that could be a priority, and we are nobody to judge. But our very American Hal Jordan could hardly stand and witness this sad affair. He suggests a way to save the people. Nigel again fires his machine to open a new rift in the universe, and although his ring's power is depleting, Hal uses it all. Gil further helps Hal as he stretches the rift far enough for the entire planet to enter the Green Lantern's dimension. As Hal's ring finally depletes all energy, Steam Lantern saves him from falling. Blue Hope. On the planet of Odin, the first Blue Lantern, Saint Walker, trains Razor and Brother Worf, the second Blue Lantern, in ways of hope and letting go of anger. However, it's easier said than done for Razor, who still has much to learn. He gets afraid of a giant Odin worm as it chases after him, but Saint Walker explains it only wants to play fetch. But hey, Razor can hardly be blamed, right? They notice the Interceptor arriving at the planet, and Razor immediately takes Aya's name. Hal, Kilowog, and Aya meet up with Ganthet, who has become the first Guardian to lead the Blue Lantern. Aya has her body restored, but we don't know how. The others also meet up with the crew, And as Kilowog teases Razor for being at Odin, Razor explains how he is letting go of his anger. After the happy reunion, Hal takes Ganthet to show a damaged Manhunter robot. Ganthet explains that Manhunters were made invulnerable, but he can run some diagnostics to find more weaknesses for the Lanterns to fight the invasion. But first, Ganthet takes them to show the large Blue Lantern central power battery. As Ganthet utters the Blue Lantern's oath for the first time, the battery gets activated, which amplifies the powers of the GLs and Aya, but renders Razor's ring powerless. But this has a massive side effect as it activates the damaged Manhunter inside the ship. As the Manhunter attacks them, the Green Lanterns take it down. They interrogate the machine, and Ganthet explains that flawed programming made the Manhunters conceive any being with emotions as a criminal. Razor's cutthroat comments about robots and AI being emotionless machines, unable to grow, hurt Aya, who leaves the Interceptor. It may come as a great surprise that at one point, Greg Weisman and Brandon Vietti were involved in developing a more Black Ops-like series with Charles Vicker as the main hero, and Hal Jordan appearing only in the pilot episode. Isn't it funny that a real Charlie Vicker acts in a series called Rings of Power? We can always hope for another series focusing on Vicker's journey. But for now, let's see what Hal is doing at Odin. At night, the others chat around a bonfire while St. Walker plays music. Razor approaches him to discuss his worries when St. Walker reveals that Razor is in love with Aya. However, Razor worries that Aya is a robot and that he might not be over his wife. In the meantime, Aya sneaks into the Interceptor and steals the Manhunter. She takes the Manhunter and hides it in a cave. As they chat, Aya tries to help reverse the Manhunter's logical reasoning. Elsewhere, the Blue Lantern's energy reaches near space, amplifying the powers of more Manhunters, who now set course for Odin. Razor also goes inside the Interceptor and finds Aya and the Manhunter missing. The Lanterns and Ganthet hardly get the time to regroup as the Manhunters arrive at Odin. The entire team at Odin, including the Blue Lantern, tries to take down the Manhunters, while Aya fails to make the damaged Manhunter evolve, and it dies. The Manhunters attempt to lift off the Blue Lantern battery, and the Green Lanterns use all their might to prevent it. Razor suddenly has an idea as he asks St. Walker to call in the Worm, which destroys the Manhunters and seizes the battery. As the Worm takes the battery underground, the power amplification stops. However, one Manhunter is still alive, and as Aya approaches it, the Manhunter detects emotions inside her. The Manhunter knocks out Aya with a blast, which triggers the rage in Razor, and he fires up despite the presence of the Blue Lantern. Razor destroys the robot and rushes to Aya's side, who seems fine. Razor apologizes to Aya, while Hal asks Ganthet to keep the Blue Lantern battery switched off until the Manhunter problem is sorted. Razor claims his rage was righteous this time, and he rejoins Hal's crew, albeit for Aya.
Maybe what Sinestro got us airborne. Let's have Aya scan you with the medcom.
Prisoner of Sinestro. It's a familiar environment inside the Interceptor as Kilowog is back to harassing Hal with rules and trivia about the Anti-Monitor. While things might be a little tense between Razor and Aya, they suddenly get a transmission from a super famous but notorious Green Lantern, Sinestro. This is when Sinestro is still not a villain, and although Kilowog is not very fond of Sinestro, Hal thinks of him as a hero. Sinestro asks Hal to meet him at a Spider Guild prison to help him escape with one of the prisoners that Sinestro must take back to Oa. As soon as the Interceptor reaches the prison, they get attacked by the Spider Guild, and the warden warns them that it could spell trouble for the Green Lanterns. Hal chooses to ignore the warning and delves deeper into the prison. The warden suddenly self-destroys the prison, while Sinestro escapes with the prisoner by latching himself to the Interceptor. Sinestro explains that the prisoner is a dangerous being called Neuroxus, and when they confine it to the locked holding cell, they find it sleeping. However, the crew is in for a shock as Sinestro suddenly tries to kill everybody with the machine guns he recovered from the prison. They defeat Sinestro and lock him up beside Neuroxus. But Sinestro doesn't seem to remember what happened. Razor and Sinestro exchange glances, and suddenly, Razor behaves extremely oddly. Razor openly flirts with Aya to retrieve the yellow gun Sinestro brought from the prison. Aya gets flabbergasted by the behavior and tries to analyze it. She reports the incident to Hal and Kilowog, and Hal tries to explain to her about hormones, but he realizes something is off and goes to investigate. Razor tries to kill Hal, but Hal saves himself from the attack. Yet, it seems Hal has turned rogue and calls Kilowog to meet him at the storage. Again, in this episode, the Green Lantern power rings do not fall weak to yellow beams, further busting the canonical myth. As Kilowog appears, Hal tries to kill him. On the other hand, Sinestro escapes from the temporary cell and wears his ring. He agrees with Aya that something is not right. The writers and producers of this show were specifically asked not to use Sinestro too much, as his destiny in DC was still not decided. Meanwhile, at the storage, Hal and Kilowog fight, and Kilowog almost pins Hal down when Razor stops Kilowog. It is clear that Neuroxus is occupying the crew one by one and can't do it with Aya as she is a machine. Hal notes that when Neuroxus possesses them, they cannot use the ring power to make a construct, and this way, they can find out who is currently being possessed. Hal shows he can create a construct, and so can Razor, but Kilowog refuses to make it. As Hal suggests killing Kilowog, Kilowog stops him. It becomes apparent that Neuroxus can change bodies within a second. Sinestro and Aya appear before them, and Sinestro explains that he has removed oxygen from each chamber except the cell so that Neuroxus suffocates and returns to his own body. Sinestro further explains that Neuroxus controlled the warden and made him self-destruct the prison. As Sinestro, Hal, and Kilowog protect themselves with the Green Lantern's energy, Razor fails to do so. He chokes due to lack of air, and Aya becomes desperate to save him. The alien finally leaves Razor's body and enters its own, but Sinestro has intentionally kept an air vent open so that the Neuroxus suffocates and dies. He repairs the door before the rest of them appear. Hal becomes troubled by the development, since Sinestro broke the Green Lantern law, while Sinestro claims he didn't kill, but this could be a subtle hint to Sinestro's evil nature growing. On the other hand, Razor asks Aya if he did something wrong, and poor Aya realizes it was foolish of her not to understand that the friendly Razor was not in his right mind. Loss. After a long time, we are taken back to the Red Lanterns, who have now arrived at the planet Ismal, and are accompanied by the Guardian Science Director. The Science Director assures the Red Lanterns that Shard will be effectively integrated into Ismal, and that further renovations will be undertaken. The Red Lantern crowd also includes Prince Ragnar as one of them. However, Prime Magistrate Zilius Zox is not impressed and has doubts, especially since Appa Ali Apsa hasn't come along with them as promised. The reason is the Manhunter terror the Reds are still unaware of. Bleez takes Zox aside and asks if they can kill the Science Director, but Zox has another plan. He wants to milk the Guardians for the redevelopment and secretly build their forces. On the other hand, a signal from Anti-Monitor wakes up a semi-damaged Manhunter, but a block of concrete falls on it, apparently crushing it. The Science Director becomes the only witness to the event and keeps it a secret from Zox as she ushers him to other areas and coaxes him to build his statues everywhere. With both parties playing each other, we are sure Hal and his crew have to pay the brunt of it all. Hal informs his crew that they have to reach Ismal to be a part of the celebration of the reinstatement of the Red Lanterns. Razor asks the team to make a pit stop for personal reasons, and he wants to revisit his home planet. It's a coincidence that 2 days after the episode aired, Cartoon Network announced the cancellation of this series and Young Justice, 2010. Aya stalks Razor as he goes back to the ruins of his home. However, in a moment of great character growth, Razor confesses to being a changed man. He shows Aya a flower that has bloomed in ruins after ages and is about to kiss her when Hal immediately calls them and tells them about the Science Director calling urgently. Once they arrive at Ismal, the Science Director gets angry to see Aya there, and Hal makes it pretty clear that she is part of the team. The Guardian asks the crew to take care of the Manhunter situation as she returns to attend the celebratory banquet. While fighting the Manhunter, Razor gets blasted and falls in front of Zox, who notices the Manhunter. Although Hal and Kilowog finish the Manhunter, they must capture Zox so he doesn't alert the others. When the Guardian arrives at the ship, she is shocked to find Zox captured. They soon learn that Anti-Monitor is approaching frontier space and arrives at the location of the Maelstrom. Did you know Batman was once a Green Lantern? In a 1994 comic, Batman, The Darkest Knight, Bruce Wayne becomes the GL instead of Hal Jordan. In fact, other characters like Barbara Gordon, Superman, Kid Flash, and even Green Arrow once wore the power ring. The science director tells the story of a rogue Guardian called Krona, who wanted to make a super being capable of even time travel and created the Anti-Monitor. But Anti-Monitor turned everything to antimatter, and Krona banished Anti-Monitor to another dimension. The Interceptor crew watches as the Anti-Monitor starts consuming the Maelstrom asteroids. Unfortunately, they get detected by the Anti-Monitor, who sends the Manhunters after them. As Zox refuses to join, Hal, Kilowog, and Razor fight off the Manhunters, while Aya prepares the ship for ultra-warp travel. However, while returning to the ship, Razor separates from the others and is surrounded by Manhunters on all sides. Aya leaves to rescue Razor. The audacity of the Guardian in ordering Aya to stop is infuriating, especially when the Guardian and Zox ask Hal and Kilowog to abandon Razor and Aya. The Green Lanterns ignore the orders and start scanning for Razor and Aya. Aya saves Razor from being annihilated, and they are about to confess their feelings when Aya notices the Anti-Monitor preparing to beam at them. Aya sacrifices her life to save Razor. In a heart-wrenching moment, Razor confesses his love for Aya before she dies, and her robot body gets disintegrated. The Interceptor arrives at the last moment and drags Razor away before he is blasted. Cold Fury. Razor returns to the bridge as the Interceptor tries to escape from the Manhunters and Anti-Monitor. When Hal inquires about Aya, Razor informs him that she is dead. He gets ready to be blamed for her death, but Kilowog handles the situation. Hal decides to mourn for Aya later, as they have more things to prioritize. Zox connects with Bleez and gives her a rundown of the entire event. In the comics, the Red Lanterns are mostly mindless creatures with rage and can hardly make constructs like the other Corps. However, this series has shed impressive exposure on the Reds, especially with Razor. The Guardian has a plan, as she asks Hal to stop the ship so that she can directly confront the Manhunters. The Guardian uses her long-suppressed Guardian powers to deactivate the Manhunters, but Anti-Monitor mocks her and establishes his authority over the Manhunters. The Guardian and Anti-Monitor face off, in which the Guardian perishes. Anti-Monitor then captures Hal and attempts to kill everyone in the Interceptor. However, Shard and its Red Lantern crew appear and launch an attack. Zox deploys the Liberators, but the Anti-Monitor starts to consume everything. Hal asks Zox to make his troop retreat and also asks him to warn everyone at Izmo to prepare. The Red Lanterns and Interceptor flee while Anti-Monitor is busy destroying Shard. Although Ryan Reynolds' Hal Jordan was the first solo movie, it was not the first live-action representation of the Green Lantern. The character appeared in Legends of the Superheroes television specials, Smallville, and even in the Arrowverse crossover, Crisis on Infinite Earths. The surprises are not over, as Aya has managed to download herself onto a damaged Manhunter and come up to the Interceptor. When Razor looks uncomfortable, she uses her stored spare parts to return to her original shape. However, Razor denies his feelings for her and claims that he felt he was in love, as Aya looks like Alana. Aya is shocked at the confession and has a hard time processing it. She tells Hal about it and how it affects her ability to compute. Hal tries to sympathize, but doesn't have the time to help her, as the Red Lantern Armada is ready to join his war against the Anti-Monitor and the Manhunters. Hal promises Aya to talk about it later and gets into flying the Interceptor. However, Aya is deeply hurt and asks Razor what she should do since she can't concentrate on the present activity. The show becomes all too real with this, and by depicting such complicated emotions, it was way ahead of its time. Razor answers that it's better to shut off the emotional side at such time, which Aya takes seriously and shuts off her emotions. She goes to the battery core of the Interceptor and draws all its energy. Hal tries to stop Aya as she heads towards Anti-Monitor, but Aya blasts him back to the ship. As the saying goes, hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned. Aya unleashes her anger in ripping apart Manhunters on her way. She uses a Red Lantern ship to throw at Anti-Monitor, despite knowing that the Reds are fighting with the GLs. Aya then enters Anti-Monitor and rips open his wirings, apparently killing him. This deactivates the Manhunters, but Aya takes control of the Anti-Monitor's body as she glows blue like him. She proclaims herself as the queen of the Manhunters and reactivates them. Aya rejects all beings with emotions and towses the Interceptor far away as she leaves. Babel. After being tossed away, the powerless Interceptor floats in space and the lanterns find their rings at low charge. Razor uses his personal battery to charge up the core, which helps them crash on a nearby planet, but it completely burns out Razor's lantern. They notice that the planet's air is mostly methane, and with the Interceptor's window damaged, Hal, Kilowog, and Razor set forth for a nearby city with a dome. However, the low power on their rings makes them unable to fly, and they somehow manage to walk for about 25 kilometers to reach the gates of the city. Hal introduces themselves as Green Lantern and Associates, but the alien species living in the city turns out very hostile and shoots at them. Soon enough, Hal and Kilowog's ring runs dry, and they find it difficult to breathe and fail to understand each other. Kilowog mentioned earlier that the ring helps them translate each other's language, which answers why everybody speaks in English. The title of this episode refers to the challenge of not understanding each other's language. Razor uses the last bit of his power to protect Hal and Kilowog from breathing methane while he acts as a translator for the duo. They plan to enter the city behind the trucks and manage to do it with a little bit of teamwork. However, they are soon spotted by some of the aliens who chase after them. After two very serious and aggravating episodes, this one provides much comic relief. One of the aliens beckons at the trio and asks for payment to give them a ride. It appears Razor carries various weapons inside his garb. In a hilarious turn of events, the alien looks at Carol's picture in Hal's stuff and asks for her as payment, only for Kilowog to punch the guy. The trio gets noticed by other aliens, and they manage to hijack a truck. Hal and Razor fight over the wheels and ultimately get caught by the alien. Producers Giancarlo Volpe and Jim Krieg suggested that the translation barrier is used as a running gag throughout the series, but Bruce Timm suggested dedicating an entire episode to it. The trio wakes up in a gladiator-like arena and is made to fight a giant monster adorned by several skulls. Kilowog and Razor do not understand Hal's instructions as they randomly attack the monster, but a sudden Manhunter chant alerts Hal. He notices a Manhunter's skull on the monster's body, and since the Manhunters are powered by the same stuff as Green Lanterns, Hal realizes he can charge his ring with the energy inside the Manhunter's head. Hal tries delivering a pep talk about the power residing within, and they finally make a coordinated attack on the monster. As Hal recharges his ring, he tosses the skull to Kilowog to power up, and Kilowog does the same to Razor, forgetting that he is a Red Lantern. However, after the GLs are done with the monster, Razor knocks out the villain with the skull. The aliens panic at what the Lanterns did to their mother. Calling that monster mother is deeply unsettling, but we don't get an answer as the trio returns to the now charged up Interceptor. Kilowog repairs the windows, and Razor finds that his Red Lantern has recharged. They again start their journey to find Aya. Love is a battlefield. While the Interceptor crew sets course to find Aya, she appears at Zamaron, launching an attack on Queen Agapo for cultivating love. Aya has become truly despicable after the rejection of love, and she uses her Manhunters to attack the innocents. Gyata tries to defend love, but the cold and emotionless Aya wants to understand how love can be superior and bring peace and harmony to the world. According to Gyata, Carol Ferris of Earth has the greatest understanding of love, so Aya teleports Carol in the middle of her buffet dinner, which tells us why she is Hal's true love. When Aya forces Carol to explain love, she recites the 1 Corinthians 13 definition and drops the title, Love is a Battlefield. Aya decides to test if love is stronger than hate on a battlefield, so she summons Atrocitus as the champion of hate. Aya asks Atrocitus to fight Carol and offers him freedom and revenge as a prize. Gyata gives Carol her ring so that she can defend herself. The showrunners toned down the Star Sapphire uniforms as they were too naked, according to broadcast standard and practices, but Carol's attire is so much better than Gyata's. On the other hand, Kilowog wants to focus on other missions, but still misses Aya's expertise in managing the Interceptor. They initiate an Ultra Warp, but when they come out of it, the Interceptor finds it in a star's atmosphere and escapes being vaporized. Back in Zamaron, the fight begins, and Carol can hardly keep up as she gets thrown around by Atrocitus. Carol uses her ring to summon Hal, and a portal opens up in the Interceptor, through which Hal can see her fighting. As Hal leaves through the portal, Razor and Kilowog decide to use the Ultra Warp to reach Zamaron. Hal fights Atrocitus and Carol helps, but with Atrocitus rested, he has amassed much power. Seeing that Atrocitus is about to fatally injure Hal, Gyata appears before Atrocitus and gets hurt by the blast. As Atrocitus now attempts to blast off Carol, Hal fights back with more power. Finally, Carol helps crush down Atrocitus with a large block of rock. Giata takes her last breath in Hal's arms, and Queen Agapo shares how proud she is of her niece for laying her life for love. But even after this great showcase of love triumphing over hate, Aya is not impressed. She calls it Atrocitus' failure and takes away his ring before tossing him back to the prison. Aya's twisted mind construes the event as proof that love brings pain. She decides to destroy Zamaron and all living forms in the future so that the world is run over by a motionless automaton. As Aya Monitor prepares to destroy Zamaron, the Interceptor appears, and Razor appears before Aya. Aya might still have lingering feelings for Razor as she spares the planet, but promises to annihilate others. After Aya and her troop leave, it's time for Carol to say goodbye. But this time, she decides to keep the ring and promises to meet Hal somewhere in the galaxy later. Larfleeze. The episode starts with Appa blaming Hal for the entire fiasco regarding Aya becoming an evil AI set on destroying life. Hal takes the blame, and Razor already feels extremely guilty about it. Hal and Kilowog decide that they may have to finish Aya if necessary, but they are afraid about breaking the news to Razor. However, there still might be hope or something hope adjacent, as Razor tells Hal and Kilowog about the Orange Lantern Corps. He tells them that ages ago, a group of conquerors harnessed the power of the orange energy, and the lantern only chose those with a strong sense of duty. Apparently, even Atrocitus failed to conquer them. However, the Orange Lanterns vanished overnight, and anyone who tried looking for the power didn't return. With their new guidance system, the cheery Linos, or as Kilowog calls him, Lame-O, the Interceptor, sets forth for Oka'ara, the homeworld of the Orange. Upon arriving on the planet, Razor suggests splitting up, but Kilowog follows him and tries to talk to him about Aya. Meanwhile, Hal goes on his own journey and finds a tunnel. He gets a stinking smell but continues to find the Orange Lantern, which has an odd effect on Hal. A creature calling itself Larfleeze claims that the lantern is his, and he is the Orange Lantern Corps. As Hal tries to take away the Orange Lantern battery, Larfleeze constructs orange monsters to stop him. Hal defeats them, but a larger hologram of Larfleeze appears. As Kilowog and Razor help Hal knock the monster out, the real Larfleeze creeps away. Larfleeze, calling the power all mine like a maniac, reminds us of the Golem from the Lord of the Rings saga. Hal takes the Orange Lantern and returns to the Interceptor with Razor and Kilowog, but Kilowog notices something is off. Hal soon turns very proprietary about the Orange Lantern battery and calls it mine like a maniac. He even turns into an Orange Lantern Corps and leaves with the battery. The episode is based on Agent Orange, which is Larfleeze's first appearance in the comics, where Hal stole the Orange Lantern and got possessed by the power. Kilowog and Razor go looking for Hal and encounter Larfleeze outside the Orange Power Temple. They easily defeat the Orange Lantern, but Kilowog tries to make a deal with Larfleeze. He seeks Larfleeze's help in getting back Hal so that Larfleeze can have his orange shiny back. Razor has already explained that the Orange Lanterns are powered by greed, so it's obvious when Larfleeze expects more out of the deal. However, Kilowog and Razor use age-old tactics to make Larfleeze join them. Inside the temple, Hal adorns several orange power rings which help him with constructs. Hal is too strong for Razor and Kilowog, who gets thrashed, while Hal gets into a tug-of-war with Larfleeze for the battery. Amidst the fight, Kilowog and Razor notice several stars blinking out, which means Aya Monitor is probably destroying them. Larfleeze and Hal also notice the lights of the stars going out. Kilowog and Razor use the opportunity to remind Hal of his mission, duty, and priority. Hal proves himself to be a great Green Lantern as he uses the power of will to give up the orange battery and return it to Larfleeze. An impressed Larfleeze shows a willingness to give something back in return and brings his chest of valuables. One of these also includes the yellow rings. The producers were specifically requested not to use the Sinestro Corps. However, Season 2 concept art by Bruce Timm features Yellow Ring Sinestro, Hawkman, Arisia Rab, and Hal in new armored uniforms. Larfleeze ultimately finds nothing he can part with, and the trio leaves disappointed. Hal and Kilowog tell their decision about Aya to Razor, but he believes there is still hope to get her back, and Hal agrees.
Aya, that was never the plan. We only hope to...
Scarred. The episode opens with Aya Monitor destroying a planet, and then it moves on to Ola, where Green Lanterns Hal and Kilowog, along with Red Lantern Razor, are in a meeting with the Guardians. Appa, as usual, blames everything on Hal, but Ced is still sympathetic. Hal asks if the science director left any data about Aya, but Appa confirms there's none. He disallows Hal and his friends from investigating and dismisses them. However, Jordan, being Jordan, breaks into the science director's lab with some assistance from Kilowog. They look through the science director's staff, and Hal switches on a holographic map of the system. When Kilowog adjusts the alignment of a planet, it opens a secret door. The trio comes across the real journal of the science director, but it's written in a language their rings can't translate. The half-built robot found by Kilowog represents Alpha Lantern, while the Book of the Black is briefly shown in the science director's living quarters. Appa notices the breach in the quarters and attempts to catch Hal, but it's Ced who appears first and tells them it's Old Maltusian, which is the Guardians' sacred language. Ced finds nothing about Aya in the science director's journal, but Hal notices some coordinates. Ced helps Hal and his friends sneak out as Appa arrives at the hidden chamber. Hal takes the interceptor through another ultra warp to arrive near the planetoid Vorga, but they are attacked by giant space turtles that look like asteroids. One of the creatures gets hold of the interceptor's tail, but has to let go as the aircraft enters the atmosphere. The crew finds a hidden door in the middle of tall, concrete-like structures. They enter the facility, only to find it's headed by the science director, now deeply scarred after her combat with Anti-Monitor. Since the science director is Scar, let's just call her that. Scar tells them she time-traveled to save herself, but was scarred by the Anti-Monitor. Scar explains that she secretly preserved all of the primitive Guardian powers. When Scar was tasked to make an empathetic being better than Manhunters, she created Aya and even infused her with life by inserting a sliver of life component from the central power battery of Ola. This comes as a shocking revelation for Kilowog as he learns something alive resides inside the battery. Scar continues that Aya had defied her orders and even downloaded personal data, so she wiped Aya's mind and turned her into a Navcom for the Interceptor. Scar tells them Aya can be stopped by using the Yellowstone Aurum, so they should create a missile using it. Razor protests that it would kill Aya, but Scar assures them it will only paralyze her like a tranquilizer. The crew flies to the planet of the Nadars, who help them load several tons of Aurum into a missile. If you are wondering how the missile is not affecting the ship of the Green Lanterns, it's due to a special shell created by Scar. Once done, they use the Ultra Warp to appear where Aya is. Scar sends Razor to distract Aya while they inch closer to her with the Interceptor. Razor again tries to convince Aya to revert to her old self, but before he can say anything else, Scar launches the missile at them, seemingly killing Razor and Aya. Kilowog goes mad in rage at the betrayal and tries to attack Scar, but she retaliates and knocks him out. Hal tries to stop her, and Scar tries to snuff out Hal's life, but it appears Aya has blocked the attack. Aya assumes Razor wants to kill her, and so shoves him away while she approaches the Interceptor to kill the others. Scar teleports away while Hal switches on the Ultra Warp and sends the Interceptor away with Aya. Razor punches Hal, thinking he killed her, but Hal assures him she will be alright. However, it still spells doom as the three Lanterns try to figure out how to stop Aya. Ranks. After the events of the last episode, Hal, Kilowog, and Razor are stranded in space and have to fly back to Oa. Hal receives a continuous communication signal but is unable to connect to it, while Kilowog and Razor get into another argument as usual. Razor uses the technique he learned from St. Walker to let go of his rage. Appa calls Hal and asks them to travel to planet Ranks, where Manhunters are attacking the long-abandoned planet. Naturally, the Guardians are curious about what the Manhunter wants and have sent several Green Lanterns to fight. Guy Gardner is promoted to an honor guard like Hal and is leading the charge with others like Chassalon, Larvox, Chip, Tomer Ray, and Kahan. However, the troops had to retreat after the first attack as the Manhunters could detect emotions, and they retaliated with a full-blown attack. When Hal and his company arrive, Guy's obnoxious attitude gets on Hal's nerves. Guy mentions John Stewart as the new Green Lantern protecting Earth. Hal confusing him with the fake news guy is a reference to actor John Stewart, who hosts The Daily Show. Since Guy is in charge of leading the attack, Kilowog pulls Hal away, and Razor suggests that they use St. Walker's technique to temporarily purge their emotions so they can get past the Manhunters without being detected. The ruse works initially, while the rest of the Green Lanterns has to scatter. However, when one of the Manhunters speaks in Aya's voice, it distracts Razor, and their emotions get detected. Meanwhile, the beeping signal on Hal's power ring becomes stronger, and he realizes someone has invited them to the uninhabited plant. He asks the other to follow and get past the shield, but a few Manhunters sneaks in. As they try to escape the Manhunter, the planet's defense system fights the robots. Hal, Kilowog, and Razor follow the signal as structures move randomly around them. When these structures almost crush them, Hal introduces himself, and the structures retract. It is revealed that Hal is brought to the planet by the Anti-Monitor, who has somehow survived and replenished himself. With so many characters introduced, it may seem unlikely that producer Giancarlo Volpe was not familiar with the character and had to order Green Lantern graphic novels by Jeff Johns to catch up. Speaking of catch-up, Anti-Monitor recounts how Aya only displaced his helmet, which contained his life force. He explains that the helmet possesses a time displacement cylinder that can help in going back to the time of the creation of the universe. Hal deduces that Aya wants to travel back in time to either change the universe or stop it from creating life forms. Anti-Monitor asks them to be his bodyguard, and Hal agrees since Anti-Monitor cannot destroy the world right now. Meanwhile, Guy leads the GLs in making gun-like constructs that help them destroy the Manhunters. However, Aya Monitor appears behind them, and the construct appears useless in front of her. Aya Monitor enters ranks after breaking its force shield. She confines Hal, Kilowog, and Razor in a force field and attempts to rip off Anti-Monitor. Anti-Monitor tries to make a deal with Aya and betrays the Lanterns, but Aya destroys the helmet and takes the time displacement cylinder. As she leaves to wipe out the existence of all, we move into the series' final episode. As even Razor starts to believe that killing Aya is the only option, let's find out how Hal and his friends stop total annihilation.
Razor!
Dark Matter. The final episode begins at Oa with Appa and the other Guardians giving a pep talk and a goodbye speech to the Green Lantern Corps, which amazingly also includes Red Lantern Razor. However, Hal is not assembled with others as he looks through the library and examines the stars and systems destroyed by Aya Monitor. Tomar-Re visits Hal and asks him not to blame himself for the outcome. Tomar-Re is unusually optimistic for a Green Lantern and would have been better suited as a blue one. While the rest of the Green Lantern Corps leaves to confront Aya, Hal notices something spectacular that gives him hope. Elsewhere, the Green Lantern Corps and Razor start fighting the Manhunters as Aya approaches a station to set up the time displacement cylinder. A significant portion of this episode features the Green Lanterns using different techniques to finish off the Manhunters. Since this show is set on Earth-16 and shares the same universe as Young Justice, several characters of this show feature in Season 4, Episode 19 of Young Justice. It shows what happens to Razor at the end of this story. Now coming back, Hal arrives at last and asks Salak to call off the attack, but this time Salak refuses to listen, and we can't blame him. As Hal moves past the GLs fighting, Kilowog and Guy Gardner give him cover. Hal confronts Aya and tells her that he knows she has destroyed stars that are surrounded by uninhabited planets, which means her empathy doesn't allow her to kill. Aya refuses to listen and takes him inside as she is about to open a time portal. In some sort of sadistic pleasure, Aya wants Hal to witness the universe becoming non-existent before he dies. Hal calls Kilowog and asks him to send Razor as a last measure. Kilowog assumes Razor can fight against the green power, so he and Guy pull out the big gun, construct a big gun to propel Razor like a bullet. Meanwhile, Aya opens the portal and goes to the moment of the Big Bang. As she starts influencing the vortex, Hal again approaches her and tries to speak to her emotional side. To make his case, Hal shows her the footage of Scar confessing that Aya is a living being. However, Aya refuses to believe the footage. Aya's plan to remake the universe is also the major plot point in Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is one of the iconic and legendary DC comics that first introduces the Anti-Monitor. When Razor blasts through the Aya Monitor's bust, he notices Aya with Hal in front of the beginning of the time event. Razor constructs a dagger as he attempts to kill Aya and as Aya tries to stop him, she blasts him off. The blast fatally wounds Razor and brings Aya back to her senses. As Aya is brought to tears, now we know how she was capable of crying. Aya stops and lets the Big Bang happen naturally. As Hal and Aya emerge with the almost dead Razor, the portal closes, and the time displacement cylinder gets destroyed. Hal implores Aya to heal Razor, and as she does so, she reverts to her original green self. Aya and Razor reconcile, but Aya cannot call back the Manhunters as they are now each like a dark Aya. Aya relays that a virus can kill all forms of her, but this will mean her real self will also die. Razor embraces Aya and asks her to stop, but it's already done. Aya again dies in Razor's arms, but promises to watch over him. Later, the Green Lantern Corps waits to honor Razor as the hero, but he wants to leave and look for Aya. Kilowog claims that Aya's dead, but Razor refuses to believe that and hopes some form of her must be somewhere. Kilowog and Hal promise to be there for Razor whenever he needs help, and in a truly warm moment, Kilowog and Razor hug. It's an emotional goodbye, but a beautiful one. As Razor flies through space, a Blue Lantern ring follows him, bringing an end to the series. Marvelous verdict. It is an outstanding series, visually and plot-wise. The series has introduced and treated characters well, so a sudden cancellation was disheartening. However, instead of getting nostalgic, the show reminds us of the extent to which creators can go with storytelling. The series depicts some seriously dark emotions and issues, but not at the cost of making it preachy. We love how each lantern color gives its due credit to real human emotions, with humor thrown into the mix in the right quantities. Having said that, we would have liked other Earth-based Green Lanterns more than completely focusing on the Razor Aya love story. What are your take on this? Also, if you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more of this cartoon awesomeness.